All right, so welcome everybody. This is probably the biggest crowd I've had. This is good. All right, so we're going to be making some hollow forms. I'm going to be making a hollow form which is in the shape of a heart. For those people who haven't seen it, it's here. So if you need to see it, you can pass it around again. We'll go around again. So making a hollow form, I'm going to show you a very low-tech way of being able to do it, which is just with some acrylic sheeting and some copper, or we're actually going to use some silver, and we're just going to make a nice small little piece which can be a little charm or a pendant or something like that. It's nice and light, and they're fairly easy to make. The process is called a non-conforming die. So you will find information about how to make a non-conforming die, etc., etc., quite easily by going onto Google, and it'll give you, the rundown on how to make it. But it's really low-tech kind of stuff. This then allows you to be able to make it at home or wherever with very little equipment. So the main pieces of equipment that I use is clearly the acrylic sheet. Do you have masking tape? A couple of pins, so a couple of dapping pins. Depending on the size of the piece that you're working with will depend on the size of the pins that you're going to be using. And a hammer, clearly, to hammer this shape in. As long as you've got a little soldering setup, so we're going to be using the Orca for our soldering setup, a little butane thing. And we've got our flux and our solder, so we're going to be using easy solder, so I'm actually going to be doubling up on solder, and I'm going to be stick soldering more than cutting off little pallions and all that kind of stuff, because we want to make sure that we fit everything just right. So everybody has seen the little heart, so I'll leave that up there just in case anybody needs to see some more. So generally, a good way to start and to practice is just to use some 0.5 copper. So it's nice and thin, nice and easy to use. It's great for masters and for practice pieces, impractical for wearing, unless you're going to be enameling. Only because it will stain everything, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows that. Good to practice, that's about it. It's not going to help you with your arthritis unless you eat it, and I don't recommend that. Just for those people on the other side of the camera. Oh, look, this is going to be fun. Just trying to get my silver out. Occupational health and safety, all that stuff. Okay, so this is the acrylic sheet that I have cut out, so if you want to take that and pass that along. Your acrylic sheet doesn't need to be very thick. It depends on how far you want to dome this. There is going to be a limit, clearly, to doming certain thicknesses of metal. So 0.5 is quite thin. So when you're actually doing the doming, you're thinning out the metal in that process as well. So to avoid a blowout, you might want to anneal it a couple of times during the process. You don't necessarily need to. There is a point of working it soft and working it hard so that you're refining everything and getting it really nice and smooth. If you work it too soft, sometimes you might just be a little bit heavy-handed and you'll get a rougher surface. You want to harden it so that you can then smooth it out. So has anybody done any chasing or repoussé work before? Okay, so when you're working metal with repoussé, you're working it nice and soft and you're working into a soft pitch, and so your metal actually bends and moves. And then when you're chasing it, you're working it, I find it easier to work it hard so that you're getting a little bit of resistance from the metal, and this is what we want to get so that we're getting a nice smooth surface. So this is good practice for finessing and learning the resistance from the metal. So I've got a little another piece of acrylic here that I'm going to cut out. So I use a spiral blade for cutting out the acrylic, which is a wax blade, otherwise known as, which is just a little, same blade but spiraled, essentially. So a 2/0 blade which has been twisted around into a little spiral. And the fancy saw, which is a new concept saw. I'm not going to use my sternum to tighten this. It's a bad idea. I'm just going to position this.
Silly question, but what kind of drill do you use?
No, just a normal drill. So when you're drilling plastic, depending on the thickness of the plastic that you're going to drill, it's a good idea to, if you're using a drill press, to just press it in, take it out, press it in, take it out, press it in, take it out, so that you're letting the blade, the drill bit cool down rather than just going hell for leather straight away, because then you'll just probably get your plastic melted around your drill bit, snap your drill bit off, or yeah. So nice and gentle, always bring it up and down. So likewise, if you're drilling using a micromotor or a flexi drive, then you want to do the same thing just by hand. It's plastic, so it's really easy to cut through. Really easy. So the important thing with a spiral blade though is to make sure that you're slicing on the inside of your shape. So any basic silversmithing kind of thing, whatever your shape is that's marked out, you're cutting to the outside of that and filing down, or if you're cutting the internal, you want to cut inside of that shape and file out to the line that you've got. Never cut on the line. So it does take a little while to cut through. The particles that we've got here are big enough, they're nice and heavy. If you were doing finer work, then you want to be wearing a mask so that you're not breathing in the plastic. The benefit with a spiral blade is that you can saw sideways if you need to. You know, it's a round blade, so you can go in any direction. Once again, you don't want a lot of pressure on the actual blade. You just want it to do its work. It does, because it is a spiral blade, it's going to take up, it's quite chunky, so it's going to take away quite a bit of material. Sometimes that is something that people need to get used to. So it all comes down to practice. If you stuff it up, start again. It's only plastic and your time. Not saying that your time's not worth anything, but if you're going to practice, you need to put in the time, isn't that right? I prefer to try and do as much with the saw as I can, so even if it's just a little bit of filing or something with the saw, then I prefer to do that rather than having to get the file out and use as much material, like, you know, all different tools as possible. I want to keep this as low key as possible. The main thing that we're concerned with here is the very top edge, because that's the only place that your contact is going to happen between your metal. The rest of it is, you know, your metal's not going to go down the straight side of the acrylic or anything like that. Even if you were to use a hydraulic press, it wouldn't do that. So there's a little bit of refining work to do, but you take that around, pass that around, take that around. Is there a live editing thing for this thing? Damn it, there's no, oh, there's a delay. Do you have a beep function?
What function?
A beep function. Yeah.
Yeah. Just make the sound.
Just in case if I go, okay. Yeah, but it'll be after. There it is. Ooh. Do you have masking tape?
No.
Or any tape?
Yeah.
Sticky tape? Any tape?
Look at this one.
Yeah, that tape will do.
Yeah.
Any tape. Thanks. Oh. Do you have anything to dry the metal on?
Yeah.
Not my jeans. Not my expensive jeans. I've got 3 pieces. I only really need 2, but it's okay. Let's get those. Oh, thanks. Dry. Okay. No. Where's that little acrylic thing going? Just while we wait for that, I will set up. Anything else? So when you're cutting your metal, you want to make sure that you have space around. So essentially what you're doing is you're forming metal into a recess, so it's going to pull metal from the side. So if you've ever done any hydraulic pressing before and you've cut it too close to the edge, what you will find is it'll pull your metal into that recess and you won't get a nice solid piece. So you always want to make sure that you've got a nice border around whatever shape it is that you're doing. You're doing this by hand, so it's almost like sawing. You know, people go, oh, what if I've got to cut myself? Well, you're in control of the saw, and if you saw into your own finger, then that is more of an issue to do with you than it has to do with anything else. Not saying much, but that's a problem. It's a slow process. I mean, come on. So if you see that this is starting to go in, then you know that you've left too little a border around there. So then you need to probably start again, because there's not really a reposition function with this. Once you start indenting this into the recess, you can't reposition it. That's the way it is. So just make sure that you've got a border, essentially. Does everybody see that up there? Good. Camera can see it too. Perform to the camera. Where is that? There. Okay. So you can use just a regular file to come in and do that edge and to refine your shape. Like I said, it's only that top edge that you're really worried about. You're not worried about anything that's happening down the bottom. So if you haven't cut straight and you know your shape is, you've cut your acrylic like this, but you've maintained that top line, then that's fine. That's not going to be a problem. You're going to be bashing away at it, so it'll be fine. The only time that becomes an issue is probably when you're doing a hydraulic press, because you can't see the amount of pressure that you're putting on it as well. If you make a weak mold, then it's just going to break. So if you make a weak die, it'll just break. Likewise, you can see that the heart is in the center. I'm not trying to save material here. I'm trying to build up a nice strong framework for it. So I could use this in a hydraulic press, no problem. It would press quite easily and it would last quite a long time. If you do it so that it's close to an edge and you've only got a thin piece of acrylic there, then expect it to break really quickly, because it's weak and you're putting quite a bit of pressure on it. So as long as I get that top shape right, and it looks like a heart, That'll do. I'm just taking the extra burrs off the back. That'll work. You have, in regards to your shape, you have a margin of error. Clearly, we're making a double-sided thing here, so we're going to be doing 2 of these sheets into our die, so we want to make sure that our shape is right. If you were doing a really odd shape and then you wanted to do both sides of that, that's where you would need to be and you wanted to use just the one die, then you would need to be precise front and back so that you can press one side and then you can press the other side. If you're not, then it will be wonky and it'll be out and you'll need to, you know, do 2 dies. Perhaps. Okay. So that's my clean edge. Might do the matte surface up so I can see what's going on. Tape. Half the challenge is always finding the end of the tape. Oh, it's plastic too. Mm. Yum. That was delicious. Thanks for breakfast. Coffee and plastic tape. My parents would be so impressed I'm using my teeth after all that.
There are scissors up here.
Well, they're up there. I'm down here. Alright, so I've just taped that on. There's enough of a border around it. We don't want it to move anywhere, so it's nice and, you know, tapes there. Make sure it's all... See what I'm doing? I should be a hand model. Product model. Ta-da.
For the camera.
Swivel motion.
For the camera. Swivel motion. See? I'll be employed as a display stand soon. Might take anything I can get. That is enough to hold it. Here's a little trick. Fold the end of your tape over. Then you can find it. That was a trick I got taught very early on. Alright, so we're just going to do the first one. Now I use a sandbag so it doesn't one, make a lot of noise when you're beating, but also it doesn't bounce around. So I make a sandbag, which Rod Perry makes these sandbags, and they last a lifetime. I've had this one for about 10 years and it's in perfect condition. It's aged just like me. Alright, so I have a variety of pins here. So I've got a larger one and a smaller one. The smaller one I'm going to use for the finer detail, but if you get a set of DAPs, then you know, you've got your whole variety of DAPs, and you can buy the pins separate from actually buying a dapping block as well, correct? Good. Just double checking your headstock. So I'm going to start with the larger one. Now, you know, very difficult to see exactly where your shape is, so you just start with lighter taps to try and define where the shape is. There is no formula for working out exactly where your shape is. It's really just tapping away and finding it. So you can use a lighter hammer or a heavier hammer, that's totally up to you. In regards to holding your pin, my suggestion is to hold it so that you've got your thumb nice and straight, and then this finger usually just acts as a guard against the metal for me, so, or a guide against the metal for me, and so it's kind of held in between these two and my thumb. Okay, so nice and straight, so it's just like any chasing and repousse work. You don't want to have your thumb in like this, because if you're doing this for a long period of time, you're going to cramp up your thumb. It's going to be quite painful. So you want to try and keep your thumb nice and straight, and then you can do your placement like so. Get your finger out of the way. So the tapping is all about letting your pin slide across your metal, but you're still controlling it to a degree. It's probably going to be very difficult to see.
Just following the outline?
Just following the outline, so we're only starting on the outside. So it doesn't matter if you don't get the full, like, you know, if you're beating up over here. Clearly my heart's not over there, so. My heart's not in it. So you can see I'm starting to define where the heart is, and then you can check from behind to see if you're close to that at all as well, or if I'm just whacking it in the middle. So once again we'll do, wait. Da, 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 da. So you can take it and have a look at it. That's alright, we're here all morning. Give me a chance to have coffee. I'll drink it any which way. Hot, cold. Had an iced coffee on the way in.
I was going to say this fun that you'd have to have hard, or let it get really close, then it's almost like iced coffee. It's the in between when it's big,
yeah. Iced Americano. Yum. There are two reasons why you want to start on the outside. One, to define the shape that you're working with, but two, you're going to be working your way from the outside in. So what that does is it pushes your metal towards the middle so that you can then push down the middle. So you're actually building that metal towards the center, so then you can get maximum depth out of your shape as well.
Doesn't it leave, in a sense, the thicker metal in the middle?
Yeah. So you kind of think of metal as dough.
Any material.
Yeah, any material
you
or
press
anything.
It here,
yeah, and then
you.
So like, you know, you're just using it. It's like plastic, I suppose. So Charles Lytton Brain said, you know, don't think of metal as metal, think of it as plastic, because it is essentially very plastic. And the moment you don't think of it as metal, because everybody does it, the moment you start working with metal, everybody thinks, you know, I've got to beat the shit out of it, I've got to, you know, saw it really hard, I've got to be aggressive with it, I've got to file it really hard because it's hard. But it's the complete opposite to that. If you're nice and gentle with it, it's going to do what you want it to do. But if you treat it mean, then it's going to resist you. Be nice and gentle and calm. International hand model. And be okay with it looking like a car crash, because it will look like a car crash. It needs to look like a car crash. It's the refining later that will make it look, you know, pretty. But it doesn't need to look pretty now. Stop thinking of the end result at the very beginning. It's usually a problem. I mean, you've got to think about it, but there's a process.
I'll do it.
Ta-da! Yeah. I just got dirt under my fingernails. Yeah. It's gone for a photo session on my phone, the other one.
It's warm in here.
It is warm. I thought it would be cold, but it's not. Yes.
Oil your leather.
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. No.
Did you treat it when you first got it?
No.
Yep.
It's even got glitter embedded in it from studio sales. That's my excuse. But yeah, it's just lasted. It's out of a really nice thick leather too. So they're really easy. I don't know where he got it from. Some national park probably. I don't know. His name is Rod Perry. Anybody looking? Yeah, so you just want a little bit of sand in there. You don't want it too full. and then it needs to be glued and stitched properly so it doesn't open up. And it's just, yeah, it's one of those key pieces of equipment that you buy that you just don't depart with ever. This is it. And you never lend it to anybody. You never lend anything to anybody because nobody gives it back. Where is that thing?
It's coming. There you go.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm just starting on the outside and just working that deeper just to define that a little bit more. With using acrylic, and if you had like really fine points and stuff with acrylic and you wanted to maintain those fine points, you should probably do a metal cover over the top of it to the exact same shape. So cut like a brass sheet or something. Brass is probably better because it's nice and hard. Don't use copper because it'll be too soft. To the exact same shape, and that will guard your acrylic, so that'll take most of the impact and disperse it for you. So if you're doing really fine kind of areas, if you just do it out of acrylic, just expect that acrylic to break. Okay, so as I go in, I'm going to work my way around that shape until I build up a little section in the middle, and I'll show you that before I press any harder. So you want to be next to where you've already hit, essentially. You don't want to have gaps. You will, especially working with silver, you will get a shiny line behind from where you've actually hit. We'll need to anneal this again. Expect to build up a really good forearm. So you can see there's a little bubble in the middle there still. It's ready to go.
Or pass it around. Or
Yeah. Quick pass around. I'd say chuck me your scissors, but where's your scissors?
Scissors?
Now we can't find it.
So don't, yeah, there's scissors up here. Top.
Bench or sticky bench?
It's alright, it's not my bench.
Correct answer.
So they'll be selling this one at a discount.
There's no GST on second-hand goods, is there?
No. This is correct. Don't push that to the edge. That'll be a disaster. Got that one. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll finish that one off because it only goes to a certain depth. Then I'm going to anneal it, pickle it, and then I'll work on the other one and do the same thing to that. Get that up to the stage, and so then you're working your two sheets at the same time essentially. And you're not just working one sheet and then working another sheet. So very much a production method where you're just doing sure. Do you have snips? Otherwise yeah. so we might save the easy for the moment. Yeah, so like with any kind of jewellery you're making in a series, you should be going through your steps. There it is. At the same time. So if you're doing rings, then you're cutting all the rings, you're soldering all the rings, makes it much, much faster. I had an end. There it is. You can't find that one because I couldn't find it before. So you can see that you've come around, you've got a little bit of a bubble of metal there, so you've got most of your metal there, and then you're pushing down. So you continue to do that process so that you're just building up that center to be able to get it lower down. Should probably show that to the camera as well. Don't know if they can you see that? Does that work?
Yeah.
Yep, good, awesome. There you go, folks. Just coming on the edge again because I just want to make sure that I'm right out to where I should be. I'm angling the pin.
Your pin is on the edge of that.
Right on the edge of the acrylic, yep. Okay, so I might just swap to the smaller pin for a minute so that I can get the point of the heart. Wait a minute. So as I do this, I look at the surface and I'm trying to see if there are any little high points as well, which I can start to take out now because I've started to work harden the metal, even though I want to do this again so I can get more depth to it. If I finish it with a good surface, then I've got a good surface to start with. And because it has hardened, it'll actually make it easier for me to refine the surface. Come in at that edge. How much of a point do we have? Not much. The moment of truth. So we're starting to get a little heart. Isn't it pretty?
Beat.
Take that, pass that around. I'm going to start the next one.
Take a picture. Go back to the front.
worried about this moving around too much, don't put it in a vise, because it will drop through the vise with the amount of bashing that you've got to do. You want to jimmy it up somehow, maybe get one of those rubber drawer liners or something like that. You can put it on that, those really grippy ones. That would work quite well.
It's anti-slip.
Yes, any anti-slip kind of thing so it doesn't move around would be good. Okay, so I'll just refine this one. So depending on the depth that you want will depend on how much you anneal, how much you bash it. Okay. Okay, so now that I've got both sides, so I'm just going to anneal this so that I can don't like putting up. Yeah, very much. Gotta be a little bit dexterous to make that happen properly. So you can flux this if you want to. You know, if you want to work on that. If you need that as your indicator of temperature, otherwise you can just anneal it to a point where it gets really, well, you don't want to get it red. Just totally I'll just wait for the other one. Done? Yep. So you can do, as I said, you can do a paint it with flux if you want. I generally don't worry about it because then it needs a lot less time in the acid.
No good at fishing, I don't know.
I know. I'm going to starve to death. Get them out of the acid. It just speeds up your process if you don't have to use flux. So we're not doing any soldering at the moment, so I'm not going to worry about that. Any orange flame that plays off your metal, can everybody see that little bit of orange flame that plays off? That's annealed. Done. As soon as you get an orange flame playing off, done. If it melts into a blob, you've overdone it. Start again.
Can you rescue it from the blob?
No. Well, yeah, you can. It's just going to take you another 7 hours to beat it out, roll it out. Can rescue anything. It may not quite look the same, but... There you are. Gotta make sure I'm using the right heart mold, because that'll be different. It's a good idea if you haven't, like, you know, if you don't see the difference between your front and your back, is maybe write front and back on there. I know, it's something so simple, but, you know, you'll be like, why doesn't this fit? I've just been doing this for hours. Something so simple will fix it. Now I'm just going to tap down the edges a little bit, because you will get some buckling happening and you might want to get rid of that. So I'm going to go around this again to try and get this a little bit deeper. I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive. Now this is really kind of a design choice for you as to how deep, how voluptuous you want your piece.
So Dan, how would you go with something like a star that's got a lot of points? Is that a bit of a challenge?
Depending on the size, but no. You can do a star. What you might want to do is do that brass sheet over the top.
Right.
So, but be aware with the brass sheet, when you do the brass sheet over the top of the acrylic, prepare the edges of the brass sheet as well, so that they're not just at a right angle.
Yep.
You want to kind of chamfer them down so it's a little bit softer,
Yeah, gotcha.
and it doesn't slice into your metal.
I think I probably wouldn't start with a star.
Yeah, maybe not, no. But just don't start with a round shape, because you can just dap that. You know, you want something with a little bit of a challenge to it. You don't need to make it too complicated to start with. Pick something you like, just in case it turns out. And then you go, yep, I like that, I'll wear that. Or I'll make another one of those. Whereas if you've got to go through the whole process of cutting out the acrylic, preparing the acrylic, and it's a shape that you hate, you'll be giving it away to somebody else.
Is there a limit to what can be done? Shape-wise?
No, not really. Not that I've come across.
An 8-pointed star?
Yep. Comes down to your skills.
So I could do a circle?
You could do... You know how earlier I was talking about a blob? Well, you can do it. You can just do this single-sided and then solder it with a flat back as well. So, you know, the sky's the limit, really. You could dome this, and then you could do a little heart cut out in the center of it, and then you could solder that together. Ooh, that's a good idea.
Oh, wow.
Do we have a drill?
You could put a faceted stone in the center.
You could put a faceted stone in the center. So then you've got, like, you know, this heart with a little heart cut out of it, and you've got a little shadow box kind of thing happening. That'd be pretty. I think Carmen would like that. It's a little, well, that gives you an air vent too, so for when you're soldering the layers together. Work it into your design. It's got practical purpose as well as design purpose. So the metal's nice and hard, so I'm just going over to refine. smoothest you do, the smooth, like you've got to work it nice and smooth as you can possibly get it, so that then you can file it and you can emery it and you can polish it up without taking out huge chunks. If you've got huge chunks, then continue beating it. If you've got really deep impacts, you want to. That's because you're being too aggressive. So you've got to either work it from the back or work it from the front again to push those back in. So you can put your DAP into a vise, and then you can work it from the front if need be, just in case you've been a little bit over aggressive with it, and it's not in a section that you're going to cut a small heart out of. So now that's in my head. The thing is, you'll get fairly precise, I suppose, with the edges, but this type of design makes more of and any pressing makes more of a rounded edge to it, not necessarily a dead sharp edge.
We could use a hammer handpiece to refine too.
Yeah, you could.
Dome the pin on it and polish it.
If you've got a hammer handpiece, yes, you could. If you don't, then you can still do that, refine the edge, but it just manually, you want to probably try and keep it as low tech as possible. I mean, you could do, yeah.
Speaking of low tech,
yeah.
You're using an acrylic mold.
Yes.
Timber?
Yes. So you can use timber, you just want to make sure that it's a nice hard timber, so you can use, I used to get people to do it with a bit of pine and then a bit of masonite board. So that's nice and hard, and that does still kind of give way a little bit on the edges. So if you don't want to use acrylic, then you can do that. But you can pick up acrylic from reverse garbage, cheap as chips. You don't need to.
Bunnings too.
Yeah, Bunnings. But at least with reverse garbage, like if you're doing something this big,
You don't need a
Bunnings,
big
you're
sheet.
buying a $30 sheet,
Yes, they are.
which is about this big.
They are big.
Whereas you can just buy. So that's pretty nice and smooth. The other one is in here, in the acid.
So if you want to reuse the shape sometime, you'd end up in metal, working in a metal like a brass.
If you do your brass sheet overlay,
Oh, okay.
this will last until it cracks, depending on how aggressive you're going to be. But there's plenty of border around that, so that's just going to last and last and last and last. If for some reason the edges start to round off a little bit from the impact, cut yourself a bigger heart, or cut another shape out of it. Use it until it dies. It'll last a really long time.
Reverse garbage in tip shops.
There's no need to make metal die.
No, only if you're doing sharp points. Like if you've got sharp points and things like that in it, then you want to use a metal layer on that, like your 8-piece star.
It's reverse garbage. No.
So I'll do the other side.
Yeah.
Any really fine points, just expect them not to turn out as really fine points. Like too successfully. Like if you hold on to that and you don't let that go, you'll be disappointed. Okay. Once again, that says more about you than it says about the piece. Psychology 101. Let it go. Sorry?
Please don't say
Yeah. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing. Maybe keep that on the table. That'd help you. Okay, so just defining these edges as well to make sure that they're nice and crisp. Make it easier for me to find the match to the other side. The whole idea is to let your pin slide and move your pin around so that you're generalizing that surface rather than specifically, you know, focusing in one spot. The smoother you make it, the less work you have down the track.
Take a picture.
Ah.
Video of tap away there.
Tap away.
Tap away there. Tell us something about what you're doing there.
So, I'm going to repeat what I said before. So you just want to generalize the surface, so you want to smooth the surface out by moving the pin along the surface and doing smaller taps, little movements, and get rid of any high points. So you get a nice smooth surface.
Beautiful.
Beautiful!
Thank you.
No wuckers.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Gonna look great on Instagram.
All over it. Okay, so... Oh, that's alright. This is on. It's got a funky light on it. I just want to play with the light, that's the problem. It is a micro motor. Is that our release? Is that it? Jeez. It's pretty impressive. Rebeldo,
Yep.
do you have a drill bit?
Yep.
Can I have a drill bit, please? 0.7?
Yep.
Thanks. In the meantime, no, I'm going to cut it out the front. That's right. Top. Alright. Yeah, there we go. This is the locking mechanism. Okay, so if you're drilling into this, you're not drilling from the top. This might seem like a really basic thing, but you're not going to drill from the top. You're better off going from the inside of your design rather than the outside of your design. So then you don't slip everywhere. And these bench pegs have a perfect little holder.
What is it you're doing?
I'm going to drill a hole and I'm going to cut out a little heart. And clearly I want to swap my spiral blade for a normal blade. So I'm just going to use a 2/0 blade. You can use, if you're doing really fine work, then you want to use a finer blade. So something like a 4/0 or a 6/0.
Do you like the new concept saws?
Yeah, they're nice and light. I want to get one of the titanium ones because they look cool. Just for
Titanium
the.
one's actually heavier than the aluminium one.
That's all right. It's more durable for when you crack the shit. We all do it. Come on. The only thing I do find a bit of an issue is when you're tightening this tends to slip around a little
The
bit.
new one's got the flip.
But the new one's got the flip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is much better than that one.
A little bit tighter than that. Okay. So I should come out, right? That's a bit low. A bit too close. So I haven't drawn on the heart here. Just making it up. Freehand heart. Who knows what it'll turn out like?
Especially when he doesn't want
So this is where I use my blade as a file just to refine the shape so it actually looks like a heart and a really sexy bum. Look, it's a heart!
Lovely. And so straight.
It's not bad. It's going to go in the front. So that'll go in the front. Yep. 0.5. Yep.
Sorry.
That's alright. So we... Yeah. But, you know, if it's going to be something that, like a charm or a necklace or something like that, you want it to be quite light. You could do thicker. Doesn't matter. Just depends.
It gives me an idea. It's not
How deep?
Not like,
How deep you want to make it? How heartfelt you want to make it? How deep is your love?
Make it different.
There's a whole bunch of answers to that we're not giving on live.
I know.
Back next year for what? Unicorns. Next year, unicorns. Woo! Yeah, that'll be fine.
I have got charms. I don't need any more.
oh, okay.
Get that out of the way.
I'd like to try a horse's head though.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
Anybody want a cocktail?
No, I'll freehand.
A circle.
I'm sorry.
Ah.
Using this method, you do that.
Using this method, ovals, yeah, teardrop. Yeah, not too much of a challenge because it's only really one point. Yeah.
Kind of like
So anything with a little, yeah,
rather than a circle.
rather than a circle. I mean, a circle you can just do with a dapping set. So you know, what's the point? The only, yeah, clouds. I've had people do clouds before. You can just get, like, you can just buy a template, really, or you can print an image off Google Images, which is generally what I do. Thanks Shutterstock, and then you just glue that on, and then you can use that as your outline kind of thing. Because yeah, you just glue it onto your acrylic, cut it out, done. So then you start looking at shapes of different things all the time. It becomes never ending.
How did you mark your design onto the acrylic?
I just used a Sharpie and drew.
Okay, so it stayed on.
It's on template.
Yeah.
So that has a little heart on it. For cards, it's got clubs and spades and diamonds and hearts. So it's not just full of hearts.
That would have been a horrible thing.
That would have been burnt as soon as it walked through the door. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to cut this out, so the outer side of the shape out, and I want it to fit inside this one. Okay. So I'm going to cut directly on the line and then file it down until it sits on the inside of this one here. So it'll be slightly smaller. Beautiful. You can use wax on your blade if you want to. I prefer not to. Yeah, you can spit over the jewellery if you want to.
Hey Dan.
Hey, what?
Adele's watching in Canada. Say hello.
Hi, Adele. Is it like Adele? Are you really Adele? Hello from the other side. Well, I'm not going to sing it.
From down under.
The other side of the country, world, globe, wherever we are. It's too late. Right. Okay. So I'll just file this down. Yeah. All the way from Canada. Yes.
I wonder what time it is.
I'm an international artist.
It's 20 past 4 in Canada.
20 past 4.
AM or PM?
PM
Oh, but-
yesterday.
Insomniac.
I think that would give me extra kudos that somebody would be up at 4 AM in the morning just to watch this.
I had nothing else to do.
What size file are you using?
This one is, I believe it's an O. Feels like an O. So I usually use 2 files. I've got an O and I've got a cut 2. So a 0 and a 2. So what I'm trying to get rid of here is the lip. So the border, essentially. I don't want a border. You could put this in a ring clamp. The only problem with putting it in a ring clamp is that you'll probably squish out your shape. So hold it by hand and you'll have a better result. As long as you're bracing it rather than kind of doing this, then you'll get nice direct strokes from your file and remove that. Let's see how this sits. To sit inside. Okay, so this is the initial one. And if you pass this around, you will see that there are gaps, and so what we need to do is file that down until we get rid of those gaps. So that's filing the bottom of it, so then it goes a little bit more flush with it, but it needs to fit within that recess that you've made. So then we can kind of flood it with solder and make it all stick together, and then do all the rest of the stuff that we need to do to make it a little hard.
Without all the stuff being starting to show us, how long did it take you to make the chart painting?
To get it up to that stage, it probably took me about half an hour, 45 minutes. So it doesn't take very long when you need to, you know, but when you're stopping and starting, doing all that kind of stuff. The finessing is probably like doing the tapping and then doing the finessing to try and get it to join so there's no gaps. That's more of your challenge, I suppose. And they say that solder isn't a filler, but hey, if you've got if you've got enough, you can so make it work. You can quote me on that one.
So much bigger. Not that much, just a fraction. About a mil around.
Didn't need all that tape. This poor tape died for no reason. I thought I'd change the tape every single time.
I'm not in that family.
No.
You want to shoot a bit better?
Sure.
This is 3.
4? 4 would be good. Whatever you've got, really.
Everything?
Doesn't. Yeah. Where am I sitting? Yeah. No, that'll do. That'll be great. I want to have a coffee, but I'm about to solder. So if I do that, I'll be like that. What polish compounds do you have?
Everything.
That are used at the moment?
Everything.
Okay.
What do you want?
Diamond Brill?
Yep.
Thanks. Okay. So I'm going to start off with a medium solder. You could start off with hard solder and then go down to medium and then go down to easy, so you're going through all your grades. Is that Diamond Brill?
Yep. Cute.
Yep. So yeah, you could start with your hard solder. That'll give you, you know, the full range to use, just in case there's any air pockets or anything like that. You can fill it with the lower grade of solder. I tend to double up on my solder quite a bit and try and use the one grade as much as possible, which is generally hard solder. But I always use hard solder first, if it's available. But we're going to be using medium solder, so that'll give me easy solder to put on a little bale or something, which I might cut out now while we're waiting. Do you have one? Cut it out. Fine, that's it. Packing up. Silver wire for a jump ring.
Yeah.
Fine.
You're making
Something.
hard on it.
0.8. 0.8. Sorry.
The one you're making, it's got a hard, so it's got a bent hole.
Yep.
How did you solder
these hollow forms together? Does it need it?
So, when you solder a little piece together, you can actually avoid having to put a hole in it. Clamps do wonderful things. And if it's got a tiny little hole in it, you're not really going to notice it too much. Or you just work it into your design. Happy accidents.
Polishing compound.
Sorry?
Why that polishing compound?
Diamond brill or yellow brill takes your piece from a 400 grade emery through to a rouge finish. I don't use rouge and I don't use Tripoli because they're both really old products that are fairly redundant. So, oh, thanks. So I prefer to use, it's just time saving. It saves time. It's much, it'll just do the job for you much faster. You don't have to go through the 2 grades then. You just do, that and that'll get you up to a really nice high shine straight away. You don't necessarily need to use anything after that, but if you're doing silver you could use blue Hubble, and if you're using gold then you could use Polynum, which is really, really, really nice. I'd probably use Polynum anyway, but
You can use polymeric.
Polynum.
I'll show you the polishing compound.
Yes. Yes. Do it. Okay. Make a little jump ring.
So with that is almost the same size. You don't need any ventilation.
No.
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 Larger.
Larger, you probably want to consider some ventilation because it may become a little bit of a problem. There are ways around everything. So if you have a hole, if you've got a larger piece and then you have a hole in that piece, then you can, your solder will run to, if you've got enough solder, your solder will run where it needs to run, and then if you've got a little hole there, you can drop down your grade of solder, and if you've got a higher temperature torch that you can just focus in that area, then you're not opening up the rest of it, and you can problem solve it. Yeah.
Fill the blank space.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to make that fit.
Take the tips off the board.
Makes it easier to rob a bank.
And the paper you're using is what?
400. 400. Wet and dry emery. So I'll take more off the tip because it's too... So this is the time-consuming part because you are just constantly putting it against the other side and trying to get it to fit within there without creating any further gaps. So if you've got a side that works, you want to stick with that. So, your top layer might be just that little bit too long, so it's sticking out a little bit, so you need to bring it in so that it sits within that. So little bits at a time are better. Patience. Rather than thinking, oh yeah, I can just get this done if I take that whole side off. Because then you'll start again. If you do make it too small, you actually just end up shrinking the whole design a little bit, as long as it sits in there around the edge, and if you keep on going and going and it, you know, actually matches. It's a little bit there, so we need to take off a little bit from that. Okay. Yeah, you just end up making a smaller design. Not a huge issue, only if it ends up as the size of that heart that I've cut out in the middle. You may as well just start again. Then that's a bit of an issue. Don't we get too... Okay, that will almost work. Almost. So very much like stone setting, where you just go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards until you get it right. So I've got pretty much contact everywhere I need it, apart from
the vent you would normally leave if you didn't have the heart cut out.
apart from the vent that you would normally leave. Correct. Which could be at the top of the heart. No, I'm not going to leave a vent on this. I try not to leave a vent if I can help it. I have a vent in the shape of a heart.
Yes, but if you didn't
But
have that.
normally, if I wanted to make it as a solid piece, I wouldn't leave a vent. Or you could just, if you wanted to make your life somewhat easier, you could just drill a really fine hole somewhere that you can camouflage later on. So if you want to cover that up, you could do like your little 925 stamp on a little bead, and so flatten your bead down, solder that on top. If you've got a little torch, done. I'll make it.
A question, what's with the vent? Does moisture condense inside, does it?
It's more expansion, heat expansion that you're more concerned about. You are going to flux this as well, so you do have the reaction of flux in there. So you'll read in most books that about soldering two objects together, that you should have some type of air vent so the hot air can escape rather than it explode on you, which is, a good idea, depending on what you're doing.
Not light on the day off though.
No, it doesn't keep you on your toes. Who needs coffee when you've got exploding pieces?
And if you didn't want to put a 925 blob on the back, you could just do a little bit of solder covering up the vent with a hot solder.
Yes.
Quickly and,
Yes.
and protect the rest of your.
Yeah, so you kind of just as that solder runs, that's it. The problem with solder is that
inside, if
sorry?
there's any pickle or water in there.
Yeah, you hit it with a hairdryer and dry it. Or you can hit it with a flame lightly and dry it. Okay, so that is pretty good. Kind of happy with that. I'm going to make that work. Flood it.
Do a camera close-up.
Ooh, camera close-up. Does that work?
Yeah.
Camera close-up. Can you see it? Does it focus? Snug as a bug in a rug. Do-do-do-do. There we go. Prepare my bail instead while we're waiting. Whoop. So little. Okay. That'll do.
That's all right. Just worried about my poor nail. I don't know about it. I don't really, since starting to really sick, I just lose it. Cabbage on it's just
Okay. So I've just made a little bail just by cutting out almost like a diamond shape and out of the annealed sheet, scrap sheet that I've got, and just bent that over in preparation. And I'm just making the little jump ring. So I'm going to put a little jump ring in there, and then the bail will go into over that, and I'll solder that in place, hopefully. Oh yeah, that'll work. Well, some nice wrinkle. Whoops. What happened?
We've lost the top.
Oh yeah.
It's gone under
It
the...
had to be me, didn't it?
No, no one moved.
Don't step on it.
Don't step on it.
No one breathed.
Oh, Deb knows where it is.
Stop on going back.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Clearly, he can make another one, right?
Not the first time I've been called heartless either, but you know. Written on that same tweet. There we go.
I'll have that in mind.
Okay, screw it.
He's got him there. But he had that.
What happened with the polish compound?
No, don't you worry about it. It's coming back.
Okay.
It's gone for a little visit.
Okay.
It's being social.
It's gone for a visit.
See?
It's been swapped for an exploding piece of... This isn't normally how I would sand a tiny bale, but you work with what you've got.
How would you usually do it?
I usually have an emery board, but, you know, I'm about to go bush for a year, so I'll probably be using sticks.
Where are you going?
This is how you make a sand stick. Sprocket will find it. Teaching around Australia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Where's your first port of call?
Kyneton.
Nice.
Doing the Lost Trades Fair down there.
Yeah.
And teaching there for 2 weeks.
There's a guy that sells precious metals and stones there.
Oh, really?
Mm.
Don't tell me that.
He's away
I'm trying to
from-
make money, not spend it.
And you just sorted all your...
And I just sorted all my gems and realised that I probably don't need to buy anything for a long, long time.
The temptation.
That's the problem. see something nice and shiny and sparkly and then go, oh my god, I need that. That needs to be in my life.
Jason's mother. He sells a lot of on the internet, online, but he sells it some of the gemfish. He goes not to all of them, only the big ones.
Does he go to Gemfest in Anarchy?
Yes, I've been there at least 30 times. It's my second home.
I'm going
Tomahawk
there.
Creek.
We're spreading
Tomahawk Creek.
Yasha's ashes are being spread at Tomahawk Creek.
Yes, it's in my will.
Yep.
Awesome.
Favourite place.
I mean, not awesome that you're having your ashes. I'll just shut up now. Yeah, yay, death!
If it becomes a diamond, that's
Well, if you
La la la. There? Okay, cool.
but you're not allowed to die yet.
No, not for a while yet.
Not yet.
For a long
I've got to
time.
go home and make that heart first.
Yeah, you gotta make the heart. Go and make the heart. I
can't
expect to
afford
see
wreath this year.
lots of hearts. So you want to get it as close as possible. You could spend hours and hours probably doing it and then just take it that one step too far and then go, fuck it, start again.
So you don't have to focus on trying to get a seam like you would do when you're doing a ring band. It's not like that where you can't see any, like you can see little
You want
tiny.
a little bit is okay,
Yeah.
you know, too much. Like you're going to stick solder it anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to spend, you know, I've been making this heart for a month. Really? Fine. Yeah.
The whole day is too much.
Even a whole day is too much, yeah. Oh my god. Maybe when you're first starting out, you know, and there's numerous cups of tea and coffee in between or something.
Very labor intensive.
But, you know, you just want to... So I flux the base, I'm just going to place the heart on top. Yeah. You can position it, but then your flux is going to bubble and fizz and you're going to need to reposition and all that kind of stuff anyway. But, you know, you may as well start with something in the right spot.
That's right.
So if you start with a really gentle heat, see? Bubble, bubble. You should really be on this side.
Right now it's just flexing the two pieces. Right?
Just flux in the two pieces. Okay, so I get my flux through to a clear. I'm focusing. The beauty of this is that you can actually focus your flame underneath because it is the larger object that you're trying to heat more so than the smaller object. If you heat the smaller object too much, then the solder is just going to run up onto the smaller object or you're going to end up with a ball of silver stuck to a sheet. It's not a good look. So you want to... Coffee's kicked in. You want to make sure that you're heating the larger piece rather than your smaller piece. A little bit of flux on the end of your soldering wire. Nice small flame to start with. You don't want to go, you know, the bigger the flame, the faster everything's going to happen. Before you know it, you've got a pool of silver. I have everything in the studio on a lazy Susan, so it makes it so much easier. This is medium solder.
Are you moving around the whole object, or is it still going to run?
It's going to run, like you can move your flame and it'll run to where you want it to go. I just want to make sure. You could, sorry? Place your solder? Yeah. You don't need to stick solder it, but that'll probably mean that you do a little bit of soldering and then whatever doesn't run, do it again. So you just do it in a couple of steps. But if you, this is where you can double up. So this is where you can, you could place all your solder there. If there was a section that didn't run properly, then you could come back after pickling it, because the pickle's going to clear away the flux. You could pickle it, bring it back, give it a brass brush, and just flux that area that you want to work with, and that should prevent everything else from opening up. And you could go with a lower solder, or you could go with the same grade. So as long as your flux doesn't run all the way around, because the flux is the thing that's going to help the solder run, you can avoid opening that up again. Medium.
So is it worth putting yellow ochre on it then?
Yeah, you could go through to the point of doing yellow ochre. Water first, acid next. You could, but you could be like me and just go, fuck it. Just do it. Sorry, what?
No one is that fabulous.
This is true. Hey. Okay, so we're going to need that to clean off. So you're just waiting for your acid to clean. So if you're putting little holes into your piece as air vents, then you want to make sure that you're soaking your piece in water afterwards, because you've got acid in there, clearly. So you want to make sure that the piece soaks well and that you dry it really well. So I use a hair dryer rather than going back and using a torch. I use a hair dryer and heat the piece up with the hair dryer. It'll spit water and all that kind of stuff, but it's not as aggressive, I suppose, as using a torch. And that will dry it for you. It also helps with drying the dog.
And if you're doing a very large piece, say, that would go around your wrist and be three-dimensional, do you need to make how many air vents, or does it matter just as long as there's one little one?
As long as you've got, you might want to do a couple. Like if it's a really big piece, you might want to do a couple, so that you're taking less pressure off the join between the two pieces. Opposite areas is good. You know, you can actually design, like we have with sawing out a little heart, you can design your own, you know, you can do a little cutout and that can act as your air vent as well. So it doesn't have to just be a round hole. It could be a series of holes. You could make like a little starburst kind of thing, and then that would be fine. The only thing is you always need to look at the thickness of the metal that you're working with and the space between, like if you're doing a whole series of holes, you want to always be aware of that amount of material around there, because the less material you have, the easier it's going to melt. So you just need to, you know, factor in your torch control, etc., etc. So this is going to take probably a little bit longer in the pickle, but we have a nice, I'll just hold that up to the camera so you can see with all the muck. Alright. So we have a nice join. There should be no gap, especially with this one because we've got the air vent, so there should be no gap. Then we can cut that out and file it down and smooth it out. Make it nice and smooth with the sandpaper, and then go through to our polish if we want. It's going to be easier to cut and shape and sand and do a little bit of the polish before we go on to soldering it together. Just bend this. Slightly. I'm going to close my jump ring.
happened to get it.
Okay. Tiny little drop. That in combination with coffee is not really fun. But
So you're putting that, are you putting
So I'm gonna put the-
in the notch at the top or behind?
I might actually put it on the side,
Oh,
so the heart hangs off at an angle rather than it being
gives you better contact points.
Tiffany heart. No Tiffany heart here. If Tiffany is watching. Yeah, you know, make it funky, make it your own. Why does everything need to be straight?
Some people can't handle it.
I know. What is that?
Do you use liquid flux too sometimes? What do you prefer?
I kind of prefer to use the paste because it was what I was taught on. I do use a liquid flux occasionally, but very rarely.
Mm-hmm.
It's mainly the paste, and that's only because that's what I've always used.
Yeah.
So I don't use a borax cone or anything like that. And I think we all kind of get used to what we work with, and when you know how it works, and it works every time, and you know, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel every time. But sometimes it's like the solder paste. I don't really like the solder paste either. So I'd rather spend the time in cutting up little pieces of solder or doing stick soldering and knowing that it's going to happen straight away, rather than fart-assing around trying to make it work.
Paste because that was given to me as a
Yeah.
present.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to put it on nice and even.
Yes,
It
yes.
comes out lumpy.
Yes. So I even find that I use flux as well as the solder paste, because I don't find that the stuff in the paste is
There's enough flux.
consistent. Yeah, it doesn't have enough flux for the flow for me. But you know, as I said, it really comes down to personal preference and what you get used to working with. You know, 50 ways to skin a cat.
No.
My father's a vet.
Slow ones anyway.
Slow ones. That's right. Dad used to say the best thing to cure any animal's illness is a shotgun or something. I'm like, oh, Dad. Good bedside manner, Dad.
Probably he said it when he was not at the clinic.
Yeah. That's right.
Some poor kids there with his pet, like 8-year-old crying.
Fluffy, Mom.
Can I use that theory on humans?
You can, but it usually ends up in a jail sentence.
Under duress.
Under duress.
I could get off under duress.
I was forced into it. So there's this jeweler, and
I
he
didn't
said...
really do it. I didn't really do it. That was
No.
my other person
Oh, right.
behind me.
Psychological.
Yeah.
That you need to.
Yeah.
That's one thing to prove that.
There it is.
So have you got your 12 months already worked out, all the different places you're going to be working in?
The only months I don't have worked out at the moment is April, but we've got chitin, and then I'm doing a demonstration at AJS in Melbourne, and then hopefully going through to the History Festival in South Australia, and then doing a demonstration at AJS in Adelaide, and then heading out to Laos for a month, and then coming back and going to my sister's wedding, and then coming back and doing winter school at Toowoomba, and then Gemfest,
Yeah.
and then
It's good that Gemfest goes
Yeah.
for a few days.
yeah, it's awesome. And then Italy and America. So I kind of got everything planned. Just need to make the money to make it all happen now.
Donations gratefully.
Sorry, I'll just crowdfund it. Struggling artist needs
You
money.
put a tip jar.
Yeah, busking. That's it.
Are you demonstrating at the Gemfest?
Yeah, running workshops and demonstrating and doing the kids at Anarchy, teach them stuff as well. So we do a workshop with them. So last year was 90 kids in one day. and about 5 beers after. So I had Gemfest the next day, so it was kind of like, you need to be sparky. Alright, so I'm just going to cut this out. Now I don't want to go too close to where I've soldered because I don't want to cut a hole in it after I've just soldered it. So you need to be nice and gentle so that you're not flattening. Well, you've just you've soldered it and you've annealed it, so anything's possible. Yeah, anything's possible. Just, you know, factor in anything. So
hammering anymore, so you work hard and you're not going to.
you could put it into a tumbler, but Rio did a thing saying that tumblers don't really work hard in it. So it will always kind of stay a little bit soft. Just treat it carefully. So now filing it down, once again holding it by hand in filing it down because you don't want to put it into a ring clamp. It's a bad idea.
I've got to head off.
Oh,
All the best, mate.
come on. See you
See
soon.
you around. Yeah.
Yep. In a year, maybe. Oh, careful.
Whenever.
Don't rearrange the shop. Okay, so get rid of the high points.
Hey Dan, just get back to your copper part.
Yep.
Any experience with copper solder?
Yeah, a little bit. I've got copper solder in the studio, but I only have like a grade of it. I haven't really used it too much, but
Reasonably successful.
yeah, it's just one of those paste ones. Yeah, yeah, big. Yeah, so you can that'll work. I mean, it works. I've just got the one. I don't know if it comes in multiple grades though, and I got it given to me out of somebody's. But I don't do a lot with copper. Like I only use copper as a test. So I don't. Yeah, I don't use it really.
Yeah, I got you.
Not the most wearable of things. Gee, it's warm in here.
Mm-hmm. And you've got short sleeves.
I know, but jeans. I do it to myself every time I come in.
It's cold outside.
Oh, it was cold.
Like coming winter.
Yeah, 20 degrees or something it's supposed to be the max today. 20 something.
And 31 on Friday.
Oh, yeah. Humid again.
It's like Jennifer's last year. 2 degrees at night time and 32 degrees during the day. It's like, what?
Stay at Anarchy or Willows or?
I stay at, I was at the Ruby Vale Caravan Park, but I'll stay at the pub at Ruby Vale this year, coming.
Ruby Vale Caravan Park has changed owners. Not as nice as Grey used to be.
When did that change?
A year and a bit ago.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, the lady was quite nice. I didn't meet the guy, but she was quite nice. Where's that? Ah, right. Okay.
RSL Park is very good too, but you have to be a soldier. No,
that's not my... It's not going to help me.
The guy who owns Blue Gum used to be a vet in Darwin or...
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's hysterical. That's the best. hamburgers.
It's a good part.
Okay.
Have we lost it?
Oh no. Okay, so I file back the edge, and what I can do now, just get rid of any lip that you might have, blend it in as much as possible. We have a little heart, so people can see, little heart, little heart.
Can you? You talk about it like you do
Warm.
It is.
God.
It's the coffee system. I was sweating when we got here, but it's actually kind of cooler now.
Really?
I thought maybe they turned the air on or something.
I need to go for a little stretch the legs.
Stretch the legs. Ding.
And actually you're working.
Yeah, there is that. All that tapping, all that soldering.
Oh, you can get your
Yeah. It's good upper body workout. It's a shame
parts
about
actually
everything
get
else.
Like with his good arms, that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe other expenses. But it all comes, it's coming.
And if you're drawing wire, you've got good back muscle. But apart from that, soldering, I know, haven't done that yet. Got to do that.
When you're in Anarchy, do you get a chance to go get some, dig some for some sapphires? No?
I don't get a chance to do anything
No.
because they pretty much have me working
Every
day and night and demonstrating on top of that, and then so yeah, the full day, just do full days all the way through.
Extra for that.
Yeah, well, we're going to take a little bit of time afterwards and before to get there, and stop off at Carnarvon Gorge and just spend some time. And we've got a month to go from one thing to the next, so we're just got some time. The whole idea is to try and just have one thing booked in a month, so that I actually get a break.
So you have some time in between.
Yeah, which will be nice. So yeah, can't wait.
You got a 4-wheel drive?
No, I've got a I've got a van which we have a rooftop tent on, and so that's going to be the accommodation, and then I have a mobile trailer that we've made into a mobile workshop, so that's what we're going to use for festivals and
Get a
stuff.
chance, you're in Anarchy, so
Yep.
you can go past Ruby Vale to the furthest area for Possaking called Tomahawk Creek.
Yep.
At the end of Tomahawk Creek, there's an area called Mount Hoy Diggings, and
Okay.
actually there's a volcanic plug called Mount Hoy.
Right.
If you climb there, it is the most spectacular sight you have ever seen.
Oh, really?
There is at least 30, if not more, other volcanic plugs on this flat plain.
Wow. Okay.
Beautiful.
Definitely.
You know, at least 10
Definitely.
ones now.
Yeah. Okay.
You see the zigzag ranges, and you see the whole of Tomahawk Creek, and the volcanic plugs is something to see.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. No. Definitely.
Yeah.
Mount Hoy.
Mount Hoy.
Okay. Cool. Go check it out.
The
That'll be good.
Gemological Society will be there, and I think also the from Mines Department, and they have maps, free maps.
Okay,
for those
yes,
areas.
yes.
Get all that.
Yeah.
Well, they have maps for the Sapphire area, and there's many different maps. Glenarva, Willow, around Sapphire, around Ruby Vale, and Tomahawk Creek. You must get that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've never had a chance to kind of explore the area because it's just been bang, get back to the studio.
I think I've been to Tomahawk Creek maybe 38 times now.
Wow. Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Good area.
It'll
Nice
be good.
area.
Well, it'd be nice to explore for a little bit rather than, just be Working. Working all the time.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like looking for buried treasures. Never know what you can find. Last year, I'm the digger now because my husband's got new knees, so he can't. I found about 25 cuttable satellites.
Awesome.
But I was there for nearly a month.
Yeah. It'll be good. It'll be good. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so I'll clean that up. So you can go through the process of doing filing to this as well, or you could just do sandpaper, up to you. I'm not going to make this absolutely perfect for time purposes.
On the high straight and around and scoring from the low and then get your point in those fires into the here and then you go like that, a little bit complete. Then you turn it around and then you do the same.
My fingernails grow really quickly, so yeah. Then I get rid of them.
You place the star onto that surface and one might be pointing a little bit higher. So you just for a fair bit of shine on that.
Well, yeah, you can spend the time in making it really well finished, I suppose. So you could go over it with a file and file it, and then do your sandpaper. Your sandpaper, essentially, you just want to remove any file marks. Get it as smooth as possible.
Something like that. I mean, you can make them on design. You can, yeah.
I want to take a fancy piece of sand.
You know why? Because you say soda. Instead of like we say soda.
Okay, I'm just going to get a small couple of bricks to sit that up.
But in copper and then, because I'm not going to the extent, copper and then if I like it enough, which I've already seen this, which I like, then I can get on silver
Okay, so that's probably the one I want. Oops, that broke. Convenient. What? Going for broke. Putting my heart on the line. And all those cliches that we could use. How do I want to put that? I wanted something off the edge, right? Let's do that. This is a soldering board made with mica. They're quite soft. You can drive pins into them and all that kind of stuff. But I don't want to use a third hand because I don't want to put pressure on that, the heart, because you're heating the heart up, and you've got a third hand that has these cross-lock tweezers on it. You're going to end up with a munted piece. It'll just go. Yeah, you could make a little, carve out a little seat and then sit it in the little seat and these boards are really good for that. But they do break up quite easily. So yeah,
Which board is it?
it's a mica soldering board.
Oh, thank you.
Where did I put that? There. So I normally have a little couple of soldering bowls, but we're just going to improvise as we do. Okay, so I'm using medium solder again, doubling up. A little bit of flux.
It's made in England.
Come on.
We did keep the Chinese range and they are still available.
Alright, so the jump ring, you use like a titanium pick in your crosslock tweezers. So crosslock tweezers, you squeeze them to open them, so you want to make sure that you don't squeeze the crosslock tweezers at the right point in time or the wrong point in time. I know, because they don't have they got this light on, and I'm like, I hate those things. Okay, little flame. Sorry? No, so what I've done is I fluxed first. I always flux first. Heat my flux up so that my flux bubbles and relaxes, and then I've got my solder on my jump ring. Because if you flux and you place your solder and then you reposition your solder, like, you know, it's a pain in the bum. So if you avoid that, even better.
You got a little bit of flux on that solder that's holding it on the jump ring?
Yes, so a little bit of flux on the jump ring.
Plus you need a steady hand.
Yeah.
Well,
That's a great against the board as well.
yeah. So I'm focusing my heat onto the heart.
No one wanted to get it, so
So rather than putting it in the middle, you're going to save yourself a hell of a lot of pain and agony by trying to get a tiny little jump ring right into the middle and then a bail with all that crap around the outside, which is called a heart. So you want to avoid that and put it off the side, and then it's like your own thing and it doesn't look like a Tiffany heart or something like that. So just wait for that briefly before
Did you say something about the torches at the very beginning?
So yes, I did, about the orca torch.
Yeah.
So this is probably your best butane torch.
I didn't know they did that.
Mm.
So, because I struggle with that to do, like, doing jump. It's the only way to do the jump rings if you have a full-size torch for me. But
Yep.
if that's, I didn't know that came out of that.
Yeah, so you could get this as your equivalent. Like, I have orca torches in the studio that are gas connected,
Yeah, I've
and
seen
so
that.
they're with the regulators.
Yeah, yeah.
So we were talking about regulators, putting that onto there because you need those, otherwise they'll stuff up on you.
But with this you don't. So
But this you
that's a
don't,
substitute
because
for
it's
this.
straight to
So I have
there,
one of
and
those
it's, yeah,
for
substitute for
little
that.
fiddly little things and stuff.
Yeah.
Small flame.
The good thing with this is that they come with a variety of
Oh,
nozzles.
so you still get the different tips. It's just a different handpiece. Like,
Yep. So you can get the really fine detail through to your larger one, and they last longer. Today only $99 plus GST,
Did he ever come back to us with the price?
and $99 plus GST
today, yes.
today only.
Okay.
There you go.
But the extra tips are separate, aren't they?
Are the extra tips separate?
No, you yeah.
Sorry,
Actually, keep the extra tips.
you don't keep them. Don't they come in as set? Like the big ones?
On the full blown one they do, but not on the orchid torch. Not on the butane.
Rip off. Orca, fix
Like
that.
you're not selling wares.
Because when I bought mine, the extra tips didn't come. That's what I'm asking.
One of those. Right.
They're
Wow.
great.
If you've got the large
That's
torch,
definitely
then
what
they're
it's sold.
interchangeable. Yes. They're interchangeable.
So
Because this is
Buy
exactly...
torches and then you can interchange the tips.
That's what I just said. Thanks very much, Peanut Gallery.
Can you buy those tips separately though? Like online, I imagine?
You online, you could probably do it. Not from Australia, But
Give me your details and I can get them.
yeah, there you go. But yeah, very good.
So what's in your head? Is that the way it comes?
This is the orchid torch. This is the way. Ta-da! Fill it up at the bottom. You've got a little stand. Creme brulee torch. It comes with this tip.
I actually find very hard
God,
to
I'm making
fill
shit
mine.
up as I'm going along, but it's alright. Sorry.
I find mine very hard to fill mine
Really?
with the butane I buy from Bunnings.
From Bunnings or anything?
Fine
Yep.
tip.
Yeah. Andrew did a filling demonstration before, but
I did.
you can do one at the
I've got
end.
to make sure the size of the nozzle is spot on because I did it with one brand here.
I love the torch, but I'm finding it hard to fill.
They are great. They last a really long time
Yeah,
too.
And I was expecting
Yeah, that's what I have.
overflow because you always get stuff that
Yeah.
comes out the side. Not a drop came out
Yeah,
the side.
that's what I
It
think.
fits perfectly. It's a metal nozzle, not plastic.
I get that from Bunnings. Yeah.
And I tried the other brand, which I've also got over here, I think. And I could get seepage out the side. So it's very important to make sure the nozzle matches.
Yes.
Nobody likes it.
So this one is just a small flame, but then with the other tips you can get like the bigger flames as well. That's the whole point.
So the bigger unit comes with the one with the hose. Essentially, that head is the exact same head that you get in the other one, but you get 3 nozzles in the other one. So you get a broader flame, a medium flame, and the small flame. The good thing with the orchid torch is that you have control over the amount of oxygen that comes into it. So all those Primus torches, they're just straight on and that's it. So you have no control, and you want control so that you can then do a softer flame, which is really nice and gentle and small, so you can get really fine detail out of these. And then if you're doing some burnishing or something like that, you can have a bushier, bigger flame, and then you
So
can...
it's using just that tip.
yeah, you could use this tip, but like if you do it with the other ones, they have a bigger nozzle to them, so you can do bigger
I
areas.
have a bigger torch. It's more
Yeah.
that's what I'm really torch when I'm trying to do like fiddly little things.
Yeah.
And that would be that's not. I'm always like, no,
Well, the
it's
beauty-
too big a flame for.
Yeah,
trying
so
to really get
this
in there.
one,
Like with those little tiny jumping like you did, I would have probably melted it by now.
there's not much in the way of, you've got that and that's it. So there's not too much in regards to control, but that gives you your priming flame. Then you can bring that in, and so you get a really nice gentle flame, and then you can increase the amount of oxygen, and that gives you a nice hard flame, hotter flame as well. So depending on what you're doing, you've got more variance of temperature from just that. And also size of flame. So you can, have your flame quite big. So you can do everything with this torch, even your bigger stuff. The thing that so I can get quite a little flame out of this. The thing that they do better is the gas seems to last longer with this particular torch than it does with those. So
If I have a full torch, I
flame.
don't have to use it very often, but it is just, it's not as pinpoint accurate as I would like. That was definitely...
This is much better. Yeah.
So
This,
what do you mean by a regulator? Because we've got the same torch head as that, but sometimes it gets a bit...
buttery?
Yeah.
So your LPG has impurities in it. So if you're going from a gas tank, yep. So that has impurities in it, and those impurities go up through your hose, and that's where you're getting your sputtering from. So that then means that you need to clean out your hose and all that kind of stuff, or you just get a regulator. Because they're a high pressure hose, and the pressure that you have from just the gas tank isn't enough.
Right.
So you put a regulator on there and you turn that up. You can get them from Bunnings.
Okay,
They're
cool.
SIG weld, They're about 80 bucks.
Yep.
And the problem with SIG Weld is they do the same box for every single regulator that they have. So you need to read the sticker on the side because it'll probably come up with an acetylene image. Then you'll be like, oh no, that's an acetylene one, but it's an LPG one. And trust me, when you're working with Bunnings to try and find things, they don't even read the labels. So then you're just like, oh fuck's sakes, I've been to 5 Bunnings. And they were all at the first one that you went
So
to.
if we put a regulator on, we should have a smooth floor.
You will have a smooth, it will be perfect.
But you can't put this. You can't use this with the regulator.
No,
That's another
you don't need
attachment.
one. You don't need one.
No,
So
there is another attachment from the
So the-
regulator, OK attachment.
they do a,
Flexible
yes, so they do a full-size torch as well. So the full-size torch needs a regulator with it. So you need to put that on. Because that sputtering can be quite dangerous. So you want to clean, and it clogs up your torch, and then you're trying to clean it, and you know, it's just a pain in the bum.
And then I have a
SIG Weld.
Say on it.
Yeah, the sticker on the side will say LPG. So you've got to read the sticker on the side because they use the same packaging for each one. So
Yeah, when I was saying the AA, that's when I had everything. Like, you have the order torch, there could be like one torch set up and then the bigger torches around, and you can just move where you needed to move. But it's like, I have very expensive torch. Seriously, it's like funny, you make and I want to just like close the jump ring, and I'm always like...
just got a little bit that hasn't quite melted away.
Yeah, that's what I hate about it. Julie, you can do like the very last second.
It's gone quiet because we're concentrating.
No, seriously, why'd you go quiet?
So I'm just attaching the bail, which I'm going to solder in place. So I'm just squishing it in place. Going to have the flatter side to the back.
And he's going to lay it down so it's facing up.
Yep. And just use a tiny little piece of solder. Here goes nothing.
That was the last second. You said you do the whole thing, and then the last second that you were jumping or bail, and that's the problem.
Yeah. It's like, great, it's gorgeous. Yeah, no, oh my god, I
You
ruined
just have
it.
as an object you're looking at.
Yes, you can.
And with
You can do whatever you want.
With the heat, the jumping won't come off.
No, I'm going to drop down grade of solder. Once I can find where I put it.
So did you manage the jumping with the medium as well, like you did that?
Medium as well, so I've doubled up because we don't have hard at our disposal for some reason.
At least, so nothing opened up, no seal.
No seal opened up.
Yeah.
If the seal opens up just where you're soldering, it doesn't matter because you're adding fresh solder to the area.
And the heat's at that end anyway, right?
That's right. Now I haven't opened up everything else, I haven't fluxed everything else, so we're all good there.
Dan, did I understand you say earlier that you prefer to use hard solder on everything?
Yeah. Yeah.
No matter what it is?
I always start with hard first because that's your initial solder really. So it doesn't matter what you do then. It's always going to be, you know that you've always started with hard solder. So then if you come back to your piece in time, if that's the habit that you've always been in, then that should always be the same. Like, you could go to medium or easy solder to add in whatever else you want, knowing that you've done the right thing in the beginning. So I'm bringing my solder and my flux in at the same time.
It's
going to quickly heat that tip again.
Ready, and then go.
Make sure. Come here. Alright. Yeah, just the pickle's gone cold, so I need to heat that up. That'll happen faster. Get out, water. Have you soldered together? Or have you just jumped? I'll just do that again. Not confident with that. So I'm just going to add another piece of solder to that because I don't think it's not a nice transition. It's getting really hard to do. So this one not attached. Alright. So that's your main construction done. Now you would let that pickle, you would give that a sand back and polish up, essentially. You could go in and texture it a little bit using a burr, so that could be a part of your finish as well. It's going to be covered in fire scale, so my recommendation would be to, if you're going to spend the time, you could spend the time hand sanding it down and then getting rid of the fire scale. Or you could sandblast it, and that way you are lightly heating it and covering the fire, getting the fire scale to cover the whole thing by doing reduction gilding. So you heat it, pickle it, take it out, brass brush it, sandblast it in between if you want, and your polish then is really just a really fine polish, really, because you don't want to take off that fire scale, because that's the moment that you start seeing all the patches. If it's going to oxidize, then it's going to oxidize entirely and uniformly, rather than going little patch here, little patch there. So they are a few different options for you.
Is there a way of preventing fire scale by covering the piece with some sort of a is that?
It's all bullshit.
Yeah, alright. I've read about some borax paste or something.
Fire scoff, all that kind of stuff. You know, it's all bullshit. Just don't try and burn it forever.
Don't overheat
but
it.
it's always you're always going to get fire scale. Just, expect it. Make sandpaper your friend.
Right, like I had the same thing. What do you call it? The split mandrel with the.
Yes.
That was like revelation.
Yes. Yep. They're the best things.
That is the best thing ever.
What was this thing?
Split mandrel and putting the emery paper on that and using it in your handpiece. First time I did that, I was like, oh, now it's much easier.
My life. Okay, so that is the piece. So it's made. We'll give it a little bit of a polish up. Done. And then it's done.
Could make lots of lovely charms for the bracelet. Okay, done. Yes.
Wax. It's mine. Mine.
Don't accidentally take the stamp thing.
Oops, I've taken the wrong thing. Big packet of solder. Oh no, the camera's on. Damn. Don't look.
You would make a good criminal.
You're like, ah, shit, caught on camera. Whoops.
Like security camera. Oh, look at me dance.
Look. Oh.
You look oh, carrying heavy.
Got a bag for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, put together your pliers. All you have.
Get any more pliers.
That goes into that. That's not mine. They're not mine. Polishing, sanding. That's not mine. So the scrap. So we can line this up so you've got a picture of all your materials with the finished product. Photo session, photo session. That and that. Where's the heart going? Oh, there it is. Good. Excellent.
I think it's still
So
going
I
on.
could drink the rest of my coffee.
Is that the one? Yeah, I've got, I've got a whole block.
You know, it doesn't
It
matter.
sounded different. It sounded different to what they were saying. Diamond with the brew. I've got one and a quarter of this.
I've got half. I think I bought half for you.
The four numbers are a on the left-hand side of each of the box. 2-4.
It's a 1980s pose. That'll be gorgeous.
Actually, Deb, I think ours, the one we bought was yellow.
That'll be yellow.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. Yellow, white, same thing.
Apparently, yeah. I've only ever seen the yellow myself, but
Never seen white.
no, that's why I went, what the hell's that? But I think it's slightly yellow in there. Yeah. Yeah, that should be okay.
I bet I also
It's, yeah.
You're going to take that back? Yeah, why not?
it's going to take me years to go through that anyway. I've got it at home.
Oh, do you? It's good stuff.
Actually, I think we got it the last time we
We
were
did.
Yeah, I would have
And
said
then I bought another one.
buy this.
Dan,
By the way,
the years ago I had a Fordham and had also used air compressor with flushing tools and whatnot.
Yep.
Is that machine now what would be like the air compressor I used to use? Or is like, is it, you can control it much more than a Fordham?
Because you've got a pedal control for them. Yeah. This is just more your desktop model, I suppose. I prefer to have a foot pedal than anything else. So I'm pretty sure this comes with a foot pedal.
And
I think
is it,
that's
like, really finely controllable. I found there's
well, the difference between your micro motor and your Fordham. So your Fordham would be a pendant motor, I take it, like it's a hanging motor. Yeah. So more so from the point of stone setting, your micro motors are much better because you get more accuracy with these, so you don't get any vibration through the handpiece. Whereas with your Fordham pendant motors, you do get vibration through those. So if you're doing really fine work, that's always going to be an issue. But if you're not doing really fine work and you're using it for polishing and drilling and all that kind of stuff, it's going to be perfectly okay. Whereas this is more so, yeah, this is like the duck's nuts. Yeah. So, yeah, depending on what you're doing, really. Slow you down. Okay, so. It gets hot.
Yeah.
So a little bit of polishing, just holding everything so it doesn't fly across the room. Scone somebody in the head. They'll never ask me back. I'll never get to make a heart again.
Did you do the same demonstration in Melbourne or Netherlands?
No, they want advanced soldering. Yeah. Not sure what they want in Adelaide yet, because I haven't confirmed that I'll be there yet. Depends on where I get work.
Yeah. Oh wow, it's looking good.
Yeah, this stuff is really good. The diamond brill.
Jeez, it seems so easy compared to the old place.
Well, Tripoli and Rouge, ugh, I mean...
Well, they were good when there was nothing else.
That's right. But now, there's so much more. That just saves you so much time. And the good thing with this is you could just go from a 400 emery straight onto this and it would be polished up to a high shine, and that's it.
Oh, you're kidding.
That's it, yeah. You don't need to go through the process of doing 400, 600, 800, 1,000, 1,200 Tripoli Rouge.
Have a price on diamond brill?
How much is your diamond brill? Anybody? How much? Oh, that's good. That's really good.
Did you return it? It's good, I've got it. Nice to work with.
So now it's just totally up to you in regards to your finish. I would pop this into an ultrasonic to clean normally. And, you know, depending on the texture that you want to make, the finish that you want to do, if you don't want to go through the process of polishing and you want to sandblast it, or you want to do a little ball burr kind of hammer finish, you could then use your brownie and greeny shofu bullets and do your polish up with those just on the edges. Go for a contrast finish rather than high shine. Ow, hot. If you don't have access to an ultrasonic, then your option is to soak it in some hot water and then give it just use your bristle brush and do it that way.
Like a toothbrush?
So that you could use a toothbrush, just so that you're soaking that polish and it, you know, isn't, it's easier to brush off, it'll just come off. Or you could just clean it on an HAS polish cloth.
My daughter's bought me an ultrasonic, but the one from Aldi.
Oh yes?
It still works.
Yep.
Yeah,
you don't need to spend an absolute fortune.
And you can see when it's vibrating and it's cleaning, it's
Yep.
like little black chimneys coming up.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what you want.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can't get into this bale and I don't really have the washing set up for it, but
So the ultrasonic would do that?
the ultrasonic would do that. It would remove everything, get rid of all the grime for you. And then you still might need to give it a little bit of a brush afterwards. So, depending on how much you've caked onto it. But then that comes down to you know, a little bit of polish backwards and forwards. Sometimes the black that you get over everything is because it's no longer got any cutting compound to it, so you need to add a little bit more. So a little bit of finessing between how much you add, how little you add, how much more you need to add. I think that's, you know, needs a little bit more refining, but I think it could be better than that. But off kilter heart, I don't. Hollow form. Ta-da! Yay!
Thank you.
Hey, Walkers. Good timing, eh? Look at that. 11:37. Still time for shopping.
Did it work?
Did it work? It worked.
That's an Osada, hardy made in Japan, smooth as, very quiet.
So you can tell it's going to be expensive because he's doing the sales pitch.
Would you like to take that sit on that stool?
Yeah. How much is that? $2.5 grand?
$2.5 grand. Oh, Jesus. But compare that to
So you're left
anything
kidney.
else for smoothness and quietness.
Does it come with a foot pedal?
It is very quiet.
Is it? Oh, look, it's a foot pedal.
You haven't used it.
Oh yeah, that's
You
nice.
can't even hear it.
No, it's
And
very
it's
quiet.
so smooth. That one, yeah.
This particular one.
So micromotors are always going to be quieter than your flex drives, your Dremels, your Kraftec, multi-tools, etc., etc.
This should be a once-in-a-lifetime tool.
That's the echelon of
Yeah.
micromotors.
It's a bit savage.
Alright, so because Dan hasn't played with that one and it's his last demo for a very, very long time with Brisbane.
I get
He's
to
gonna do
play
demos
with
all around
it.
the country if you want to follow him. Be his little groupie.
Be my groupie. Follow me around.
I'm not letting him play with that one, but the Oz Black, for example, is about $1,000. It's a very smooth unit as well with a lot of torque, and you work your way down to about the 600 for the 207, which still by comparison to your other devices is very, very smooth, very quiet, but not to the same level that is. It's just the ducks.
Nuts.
Yeah. I guess I have to ask.
Do you have a Facebook page where you're going to be
Yes, I'm working on that.
follow you around?
Yes, under DAP Jewellery School, so DAP Jewellery School. Yep. Facebook, Instagram, all that jazz.
You have a website.
Yes, DAP Jewellery School, so DAP jewelleryschool.com.au. The blog is on the front page, so you'll be able to follow everything that we're doing. Doing little cooking recipes as well. Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're going to keep your Facebook?
Yep. Facebook, Instagram. I'm not closing the business. I'm just making it mobile.
Well, that was most interesting. Thank you very much.
Awesome. My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Oh, yes, amazing.
I've got to show the camera before you close that off. If somebody wants to hand that to me, I'll show the camera. So the poor people on the other side of the world who have probably fallen asleep by now. Can you see
Do
it?
it like
See
that
it?
so that you can see it.
Oh, it's pretty. Pretty. Excellent. All right.
So, international jeweler extraordinaire.
Yes. I'll buy that.
At what cost?
Yeah. Well.